As soon as you're ready. Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I'd like to get this meeting started. The first thing on our agenda tonight is approval of the agenda, but I'd like to just make a little tweak to the agenda to do an introduction before public requests or comments. But besides that, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Moved, second? Support. Okay. Support by Patrick. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, only 5 tonight, so 5 yes. So then next on the slightly amended agenda, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Javitsky or Mr. Berryhill for an introduction tonight.
Well, I'm going to begin. Can you hear me?
Barely.
I'd like to introduce Mr. Berryhill, our middle school principal, who has a special guest, actually 2 special guests with him tonight. So, Mr. Berryhill, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight it's my honor to introduce to everyone and my recommendation. Obviously, she's been working with me and for me for the past several weeks as we start the school year. Miss Mary Hilker is our recommendation for the new middle school assistant principal and athletic director. And she's here tonight with her mom, Karen Hilker, who some of you may know from her time with us here in Mesa Public Schools. And my wife Erin is here too to support Mary as her recommendation for the board this evening. So thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing positive news here.
And we're excited to bring Mary on board. She's done an excellent job so far, so we'll get to that item in the agenda here in a minute, but welcome.
Okay, so thank you, and that'll be part of the consent agenda in just a little bit. But moving on to number 2 is public requests or comments. Sorry if you can't hear, this is challenging, but public requests or comments. I have a few sheets up here. If you filled out a sheet back there, I just haven't seen it yet, but generally speaking, you do not have to fill out a sheet. You can choose to just state your name and address, or you can fill out a sheet and just turn it in, and we'll go in this order. So first on this list is Carmen.
Okay, she's my ground. She's grounding me because I get nervous, so she's right here. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Carmen. I'm pretty sure that everybody knows me by now. I'm the lady with the accent, and when get excited, go faster than Speedy Gonzalez when I speak. So bear with me. Okay, I'm here because I just want to share a little experience that happened this week in the bus stop, well, no, at the bus with my children. It was handled by Mr. Trevor, and I really appreciate what he did. He took care of it right away, and I appreciate that. It was a hate speech against children that were straight. It was toward my son. They make comments. The 2 students are from the LGBT community. Say comments like straight people are nasty, disgusting. When my son confronted the children and said God created everyone, create straight people, he was told, God told me to tell you, go screw yourself. My question is, there is a safe haven for LGBT communities in our school, which I think is fabulous, it's fantastic. We need that. What about the straight people? If you really think about it, straight is a sexual preference. So either they like it or not, it falls under their umbrella. So my son feels excluded because of that. So are you guys planning to include the straight people? Just a fair question. Because they receive a hate speech. It's not okay. Do we can tolerate hate speech against the LGBT community at all? We can tolerate hate speech against straight people, heterosexual people? It's wrong, it's morally wrong. We are human beings. So we need to respect that. And I want Mason to be a safe haven for them too, because they are the vast majority of people heterosexual in society. But we need to focus only on the LGBT. No, why we don't focus on all and stop the hatred between them? Nobody needs to be attacked. Nobody needs to be looked down because of their sexual preference. It's wrong. Like this week I went to the middle school. I was allowed to go in. I got mad. Imagine me, never have a bad experience in the middle school like that. I always feel welcome, and I always share kindness with them. Bring them donuts, apple ciders, and they know me for that. You can ask the ladies in the Mason middle school about my character, about my kindness. For me to lose my temper because my children was inside the school and not allow me to go inside the school, imagine me. I was like a mama bear. I threw my mask down and apologized to the new assistant principal. Sorry, I did. And apologized to the ladies in the front office, because when I make mistakes, I own it. But you have to understand where I was coming from. What I have to talk business about something that happened in the classroom outside the school. Parents outside, they can go in and they have an issue, they talk to them in the door. Was because of the mask mandates. Hello, I was wearing a mask, and I was allowed to go inside the school. What kind of pling pling is that? I say pling pling because I can curse, so I'm sorry. I think you got the picture. Are we humans? Are we trying to unite the community? Well, we are. I'm wondering if the board members have to be unbiased when making decisions for our students. So when you guys make the decision for our community, for our students, are you guys being biased or unbiased? Which one it is? Because I think the right decision for the students, and when you make decisions, not based on your political views, not based on your religion, or anything like that.
Okay, thank
Because
you.
you have to think of both of them.
That's your time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank
Ne-
you.
Next up is Kevin McCullough, if I said that right.
All right, well, thank you very much for the opportunity here to talk. I just want to share just my experience so far with the new school year. And a little background, my oldest son is in first grade at Steele, and he was virtual all of last year, so he's never actually gone physically to school for a full year. So that obviously had some challenges as we went into the new year. But I just wanted to stand up and really just give a shout out. It has been a great experience for him. With the exception of the first day, the jitters, he didn't really know what to do, how long to eat lunch. The communication has been great from the principal, the staff at Steele. His teacher, Mrs. Ashley Glover, has been awesome. Her communication multiple times a week to us, what they're doing, how things are going, what needs to be done, what we need to send, has really been going very well. So I can just see a big difference from last year. Obviously, things were moving extremely quickly last year, not that they're not now. But the communication so far has been so much better from this year from last year. And, it's just a much better experience for us, and we're happy to have him there safely in school. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Jennifer Sokol.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I understand you will be voting to fill the open school board seat. My husband and I moved to Mason 7 years ago with the goal for our child to start preschool and graduate from Mason Public Schools. If you thought you would vote no on my application, I want to give you a few reasons why you might want to vote yes. All of the experiences I have gained in the various positions I have held have set a foundation for me within every area I could be tasked with as a board member. I'll bring a new set of eyes and a new perspective to this board, which I feel is what is needed most right now. My strengths of consistency and discipline will help guide us to be more efficient. My training and education will help guide us to utilize facts and science to make our decisions. You have no reason to doubt that my vote on topics brought before this board will take into account the safety, well-being, and education of every child in this district. Without going into personal details, the topic I have most recently been speaking on doesn't even affect my own child. I have taken time off of work to be at meetings, and I've raced to a meeting after returning from vacation to speak to you on behalf of all of the children of this district, not just my own. Even with the topic not affecting my child, when I found out the air conditioner was broken in the classroom, I made suggestions in an effort to decrease any further disruption to learning for all of the kids in her classroom. You will recall I listed a couple of very specific situations on my resume with regards to my experience in my current leadership position. One of the situations I highlighted was hiring an employee with a traumatic brain injury. I have worked to find ways to meet the individual needs of several other employees for various reasons over the years. I bring this up as an example that I would use when I am tasked with meeting the needs of each of our students. I have an employer perspective, which gives me a foundation to easily transition to a board perspective. I applied for this position of my own free will and at the request of no one. I know you probably think I'm doing it for the great pay, right? I'm a blank slate, an open canvas, and new blood. I bring no agenda other than to look at things from a parent standpoint to ensure we are doing the best for all of the district's children. I have already offered to ensure there are no conflicts of interest with this role. I fear there may be applicants who are trying to push their personal agenda onto the board. An applicant who brings their own agenda and is unwilling or unable to listen to all sides of a discussion will cause further divide with this board and the community. I believe my experience and my strengths will help us find a way to bring this community together. For example, I have shown complete support as a director over the past 10 years and have a strong foundation in diversity. I've had the pleasure of leading a very large and very diverse team. Having diversity in my team promotes new ideas and viewpoints to help us reach a common goal. Some employees call us our own United Nations. We celebrate the beginning of each new year with a culture festival where employees share their heritage with others. They even talked me into hosting a table where I served my mom's kapusta recipe. My employees have all had different walks in life and thus all bring different perspectives to the table. I was just extended an open invitation last week by one of my employees. He has family in India. He trusts and respects me enough that he is so honored to be able to offer an opportunity for me to spend time in India with his family and share his culture with me. There is a lot of confusion in the community surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how curriculum changes integrating critical race theory will affect our children. The experience I have working with such a diverse group of people has set a foundation for me to navigate the board's role within these areas to ensure the needs of all students are met. I trust your decision today will be based on the depth of my experiences and the passion I have shown for making the right decisions for our children. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Next up is Kelly Hannon.
Hi, my name is Kelly Hannon. I use she, her pronouns. I know that you are discussing the edit to Board Policy 2240 tonight, and first of all, I would like to say thank you for reviewing the policy and taking a look at the language it contained. I think it's important that we all work together and listen to each other when it comes to the different voices of families in Mason schools and Mason community as a whole. I am assuming that the policy as edited will be used in the school district going forward. My hope is that there can be reporting on the back end by school administrators to the school board or the Policy and Curriculum Committee detailing when they use Policy 2240, both formally and informally, so that the board can see whether its usage falls in line with their expectations of how the language in the policy sets the goals of the policy. I believe if the board sees it in action, they will better understand our concerns. Again, I very much appreciate that it was investigated in the first place and time was taken to ensure that diversity, equity, and inclusion are goals we strive for constantly in our school system and not just boxes to be checked and then left ignored. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next is Mac.
Hi, my name's Mac. I use they, them pronouns. I came here to say that Mason experiences the things you guys say you've never seen happen. I came here in 3rd grade from an extremely diverse school where I had friends and supportive teachers, and I didn't necessarily have to ask questions about diversity because it was already taught to us. When I moved here and I came here, I instantly was met with bullies. I was bullied from 3rd grade up to my sophomore year of high school. I was called every name in the book, especially after I came out. I was purposely misgendered by students and even a couple teachers because I feel like no one was educated on the topics of race, gender, and sexuality young. Mason doesn't have our backs when it comes to racism and homophobia. It honestly kind of hurts me that I have to be here to talk about that right now. My aunt is married to a black man and they have 2 beautiful mixed girls that go to Mason, and I'm scared for their futures here. They aren't represented in books, just like I wasn't. The default for books and story problems and posters is cis, straight, and white, when that's not all that there is in Mason. It instantly alienates students and staff that are a part of these diverse families. I can see how it wouldn't be a priority to some of you because you don't walk in those shoes and you've never had to. Take a walk in my shoes for a day. Constantly having to fear someone will judge you based on your gender, your sexuality, not having a safe place to express those things because even your school isn't accepting. I've had to work twice as hard to accept myself for who I am because you guys won't, and that's honestly just sad. Mason is full of so much more than just straight and white people, but you'd never know it because some people are ashamed to be associated with Mason because of the message being pushed through generations raised here. When I mention Mason Public Schools to other people, they instantly assume I'm racist and homophobic because that's what Mason is known for. Most of the teachers, at least at the high school, are so accepting of everyone who walks through their doors, yet you wouldn't know it because they're being silenced. Mason is instilling hate in the minds of young students because they aren't willing to share their experiences even in the smallest ways. It's important to get representation in books and in math problems and in posters, discussion topics, all that stuff, so these kids don't grow up and get culture shocked by the real world. You may say that there has to be an appropriate age to teach children these things, these certain topics, yet you're failing to realize that they're going to find out about it without your help. The internet is easily accessible to most people of all ages. What really matters is that you teach them the good in these examples before they find the hate. To teach them about families with 2 moms or 2 dads or only 1 parent, to teach them about mixed race families or families with disabilities, or children raised by just their grandparents, because they're going to see these things without your help, yet you're not doing anything but lead these kids instantly towards the hateful side of the story than the inclusive one. After I graduated this past year, the first thing I said to anyone that would listen is, I can't wait to get out of Mason. And I feel like that should be talked about for a while. I'm ashamed to tell anyone that I'm from this school and that this is where I graduated from. I don't want to wear my Mason attire. I don't want to live here and have my name associated with these public schools. And I don't want to raise a family here because of the things I've seen and heard or haven't seen and heard come out of these schools. Sadly, I'm scared for the students coming after me, what they will learn and see, and the changes that are being made. How they will grow and what mindset they will develop from the lack of diversity and lack of inclusion that Mason teaches them. I thought that when I moved here that Mason would be a fresh start, when really it was just a fresh set of problems that I have to work through in my adult life. These schools are driving people out more than they're inviting people in. Mason needs to change before the hate gets worse, because at that point, there is no turning back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The last one I have up here is from Amy Lark.
A little tall. So my name's Amy Lark. I have also applied for a position on the board. And I came here today basically to have an opportunity for you guys to see what I look like, or at least from the mask up. I've lived in Mason since 2019. My family and I moved up to the Upper Peninsula straight out of grad school for me, as I was a professor in education and science education specifically. I spent those 5 years and the years before it in grad school preparing people who were going into teaching. So I have a lot of teacher prep and teacher education knowledge under my belt. I also spent a lot of time doing professional development activities with in-service teachers, and I taught master's classes for in-service teachers. The reason why I got into education in the first place, because that is not where I started, was because I always felt really passionately about students and what they're learning, but also about the teachers. And my background has allowed me to really both understand the different things that, struggles that teachers have, and what resources they need, and how to help them get those resources. So to the board, I bring to you the whole toolkit that allowed me to get through grad school and to be a professor, including knowing how to write a grant proposal. And I know that's important because money is very important in terms of getting those resources for teachers and students. But also, what drives me is empathy more than anything, and wanting to be able to serve my community by bringing to bear the experiences and the expertise that I have, the knowledge that I bring from not only my years of education, but working with lots and lots of different people. I've had students from all over the world, from all walks of life, and I've loved all of them very dearly. And when we moved here, so we moved here in 2019, and then COVID happened. And so I left academia to be a sheep farmer, which may sound strange, but it's not really, not that much. But a main goal of my farm right now is very education oriented. So once things get up and running, I really hope to be able to bring the community into that space to help teach people about sustainable farming practices, as well as helping them to understand where things like textiles come from, and just have the opportunity to give people hands-on experience with something like how farming practices work in general. If I am not chosen to be on the board, that's okay. I'm still here. I'm still up there on Hagedorn Road, and I would invite everybody to come on by to have a cup of coffee and say hi, pet a sheep, I don't know. They're hypoallergenic, I think. And just have conversations, because I'm also looking to build a community. And now that we're not out of the pandemic, but I think people are a little bit more mobile, I think that is a lot more possible. So the last thing I wanted to say was, it doesn't matter how it goes tonight. I'm still offering, in any way that I'm capable, to share my expertise, my experiences, my knowledge, my life experiences with the board, with Mason as a larger community, with the school, and I hope that I can get a lot more involved. So, thanks.
Okay, thank you. And, yep, you can either just say name, okay, that's fine.
Okay, so my name is Rachel Brander. I live here in town. I just wanted to say that I wanted to thank you for your service. It is a service that you're doing, and we really appreciate it because, except for a few people here, I think most of us would prefer to sit here instead of there. Also, I did want to come and share something positive with you, because I know usually I come here and tell you how concerned I am. But the beginning of the school year has been handled really, really lovely. I can't say enough for the administration at Steele Elementary School, and ironically, there's another class parent. We aren't allowed in the building because that's what's safe for our children right now, so we haven't had a chance to commune and have these, big gatherings like we used to. Open house was very hurried. And I just want to thank you for adopting policy that made sense for our school district. So that means that our kids are wearing masks. My kids are getting used to that. The teachers are being very safe, giving the kids plenty of time to take breaks outside, being very lenient and, easing everybody back into the learning. And the communication has been great. We've been receiving updates from both, I actually have a child in Ms. Glover's class also, but Ms. Dornbush's class also. Weekly updates, daily updates, letting us know how things are going. Mr. Dufresne has been wonderful. The secretaries, really, I just can't say enough. So I do appreciate the hard work that goes in here. I know it really shows on the small end in the classroom and all the way up here. So thank you for your hard work and your hard decisions that have been made in keeping our kids in school.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have anyone else that would like to make public comment tonight? Just ask that you state your full name and address or fill out the form. Either one will be fine.
Okay. My name is John Hutto. I've been a resident of Mason since 2016. My wife and I moved here from Connecticut and started our family here. Our daughter is a kindergartner at Harvey. I just wanted to quickly say the school year is off to a great start, and our daughter is very excited, very happy to go to school and when she gets home every day. So thank you. I also wanted to let you know that I've submitted my candidacy for the open board seat. Unlike the other folks that have spoken today, I don't have a background in education. I'm actually a chemical engineer at Dark Container. I hope that I can bring a slightly different perspective to the board if chosen, with a background from the professional world, and then also an interest in the STEM education services at the Mason Public Schools. So I don't envy your decision. It's a hard decision to make under these circumstances. It's very difficult to make a decision without being able to sit down with the candidates directly. I wish you the best. I know you're going to make a great decision, and thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make public comment tonight?
Hi, my name is Katie.
Can you move the microphone so we can? Yeah, there you go.
Hi, my name is Katie, and I'm a senior this year. And I go to high school, Mason High School. I want to tell you my experience as a student when I'm coming, when I wear masks. I have a speech problem, and it's very hard for me to speak out loud to the teacher, because the teacher can't hear me because I'm wearing a mask. And the mask is very hard for me to breathe. And I have heard a lot of students complain about the mask. I have friends, and even my boyfriends complain wearing the mask that they can't breathe, it's too hot. And it's very hard for me to focus on the mask because it's so hot in the mask, and it kind of makes me sleepy, and I can't focus in class, so it makes it hard for me to listen to what the teacher needs to say. And it's very hard and stuff like that, and I've been struggling with the mask, and I never get enough breaks to breathe. The only time I get breaks to get delicious fresh air is only after school and lunch. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Can you make sure we fill out? Thank you. Is there anyone else that wanted to speak tonight? Thanks, John. Okay, we can move on to number 3 on the agenda, special reports recognition. Is there someone else coming up to speak? Okay, come on up. We're back to number 2, public requests or comments.
Hello, I apologize for being late. My name is Cassandra Burns, and I just wanted to introduce myself to each of you. I did apply.
Cassandra, your address, please.
My address is 3526 West Kip Road, Mason,
Thank you.
Michigan.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to thank each of you for the opportunity to possibly serve alongside you on the open board seat. I did apply. I just wanted you to put a face to the piece of paper that you did review this last week. My hope is to be a part of the positive change in the community that I think we all want to be. I am passionate about the students in this community, and I do wish to serve in some fashion, whatever that looks like. Forgive me, I'm a little nervous. However, I do hope that you would, whoever you select as your next board seat member, I do hope that it is the best candidate that you see fit. If it's not me, that's totally okay and understandable. I do hope to be more involved in this community as time goes forward. So you will see my face again if it's not alongside each of you serving this community. So thank you for the opportunity. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Is there any more public comment today? I don't want to rush anyone, sorry. Does anyone see anyone else? Okay. Okay, we're going to move on to number 3. There is another public comment at the end if you change your mind after we've nearly finished the agenda. So number 3 on the agenda, special reports of recognition.
No report.
Okay. Number 4 is curriculum and instruction.
Nothing tonight.
Number 5 is communications.
Other than a collection of emails that we received from community members, I know the board is very diligent on reading all of the communications and certainly taking all the thoughts and input from our community into decision-making each and every meeting. So thank you for all your communications via email.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to number 6, old business.
No old business.
Okay, and now we're to number 7, which is approval of the consent agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda, including approval of the minutes of the August 9th, 2021 regular meeting, August 23rd, 2021 special meeting, personnel report number 7, financial report number 8, including payment of general fund bills in the amount of $1,828,266.72, food service fund bills in the amount of $20,968.99, sinking fund bills in the amount of $2,300, student activity fund bills in the amount of $15,139.82, and capital project fund bills in the amount of $855,985.95.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That means we've approved new Principal Hilker and the rest of the consent agenda. So congratulations and welcome. Thank you. And we're going to keep moving. Next is number 8 on the agenda, committee and superintendent reports. First item is finance and property.
There was no meeting in September.
Okay, we're moving right along. Bye, Mrs. Hilker and family. Mr. Berryhill, Mrs. Berryhill. Community and staff relations.
That would be me. Hopefully you can hear me. I'll lean into the microphone. We met on August 16th. We had public comment. We went through a staffing update. We talked about the Epling Safe School Report presented by our superintendent. We talked about nice job notes, which is a monthly thing, which we'll talk about in a minute here, but we'll move on. Ingham ISD Public Relations Communications Service Agreement. We talked about that, and I believe we gave the superintendent a green light on that. And I don't know if you want to make comment, Ron?
Well, we reviewed that agreement with the Ingham ISD communications team. For those that weren't at the meeting, very pleased and with their support, their expertise, their involvement in all of our communication needs. They've certainly been very responsive, and so we're excited to continue that relationship with them for the 21-22 school year.
Very good, thank you. Communications was talked about, and which is also included in our board packet. You can see the extensive communications efforts by the district and by our superintendent. We talked about the district website. It's prompted by Steve Dwayne. Thank you, Steve, for calling us out. And again, I don't know if the superintendent wants to make comment on that, but the approach that we heard was perhaps a team to look at that website. So, thoughts?
Got that work in progress. I know their meeting is bi-weekly, starting at the end of the month. So we hope to have some more information back to that committee, if not November, December, and you know, we're looking at all the bits and pieces of it. I mean, there's obviously a lot to it, but certainly, you know, the website management as well. It's not just important to have a great tool and all the buttons where you need them, but certainly the backbone to make sure we've got you know, timely posting of materials and those kinds of things. And that's what our communications team as well helps out and assists with. So stay tuned on that. More to come on the district website.
Thank you. We also talked about the superintendent evaluation tools. You'll see information in the board packet about that. I don't believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we are doing anything about that tonight as much as an FYI, and share our thoughts as we get into the future on that one. But it was something that I think we've all talked about as board members, what that tool might look like and whether or not we need to go to a different tool. MASB has now been added into Michigan Association of School Boards. Their tool has been added into the discussion here. Board presentations. This comes from Mr. O'Connor being excited. That's me, Mr. O'Connor, being excited about Level Up and seeing teachers and students for the first time in many, many months. So I tasked our superintendent to consider some kind of a showcase perhaps at each school board meeting to not just to refresh us as school board members to see some of the wonderful things we do in the district, but also we have a sold out crowd here and a worldwide audience. I think it would be really super swell to have teachers come in and or students or whatever the district feels would be nice for us to see present at school board meetings, knowing that we have a lot of challenges right now, so no one's put a timeline on that, but I appreciate the superintendent actually giving feedback on that idea and entertaining that thought, and we'll see where that goes. We did have an update from the superintendent on the diversity committee work. We talked, again, our superintendent talked about the update on a capital improvement project, things happening at Steele Street. We adjourned at 7:15. We're scheduled to meet next week. I want to say thank you to Mr. Mumby for quasi-chairing. I was out of town, but phoned in my thoughts and was a part of that. So Mr. Mumby stepped up in a wonderful way. And as always, Michael Kelly for his incredibly nice notes. That's my report. Thank you. Oh, no, I'm not done, am I? Sorry about that. Nice job notes. I previewed that. This nice job notes are something we do internally here in the district. Teacher to teacher, staff member to staff member. It's an opportunity to recognize those little things that all add up to make a wonderful day for our students and for our staff. So we have nice job notes that are put forth to us in our board packets, and it's a nice idea to actually share those, again, with our sold-out crowd and our worldwide audience. So I'm going to go ahead and, if I can pull these up, talk about the nice job notes that I was assigned to talk about from the summer. We have Mr. Laddig, who led the directed and kind of kept things going on the antigen testing to allow our kids to keep in sports. Addie Hamilton, Peggy Wassner, and Mr. Page and Miss Bearcaw were all involved in that. And I'm going to try and move to the next group that I was assigned. So hats off to those folks. We have Becky Hinman called out. Becky is somewhere in the room over there, called out for her energy and work putting together a retreat for staff. And it said she was organized and neat, and that's no surprise because that's the Becky we know. We got a couple shout outs. Actually, believe it or not, Facebook, social media prompted these thank you or nice job notes. Peggy Kaiser, and give me a second, I got to go back to the next one. And Cecilia Bouchard for just being wonderful bus drivers. In fact, they were both called the best bus drivers, so I'm not sure how we managed that tension, but I'll say they're both the best. Any other board members wanting to read nice job notes?
Yeah, I'll go next. I had a selection from June, so these are coming in at the end of the year. And there's a whole slew in here talking about staff thanking each other for a wonderful end of the year. But there was one in here caught my eye from our facilities director, Kevin Doty, thanking Roger Brock for his help coordinating the district dynamic air filter installation. So that's kind of one of the behind the scenes things that happened last year that's been very important and one of the main reasons we're able to be safely back in the classroom this year. So we definitely wanted to call attention to that because it's a little bit invisible but super important. So thanks to Roger for that.
Anyone can jump in? Michael?
I actually read the wrong ones this week, but the overlapped the summer ones. But I did catch what struck me too was the amount of work that goes into the commencement preparation, and there were a lot of positive comments for the team that put that all together. That was extra special last year, considering we had missed. It was a year break there, so thank you for all of that. It does take a lot of work to pull that off.
Thank you. All set? Mr. Mumby or Ms. Evans?
I'll go next because I beat him to the microphone switch. A couple that I saw that I would like to call out, kind of extreme ends of the district age-wise here. Last year we had approved the 3D printing course at the high school, and Mr. Shoemaker used the 3D printing to print the numbers that are on the tennis courts. So I just think it's a really cool internal way to teach the kids how to use those things and then be able to use it on the new tennis courts that are out there, and absolutely beautiful. And then we have the other end of the spectrum with our littlest folks, Crystal Hodge and Crystal Earl, that are in a classroom together at Harvey Center. And they worked with one of our littlest bulldogs to help potty train them. So I personally know Crystal because she used to work at our family daycare before coming to the district. And so what a big difference there, but just wonderful, the input and the impact that they have on the students.
Okay, I have just a couple here. One is pretty much the entire counseling staff of the high school for their Wellness Week preparation that they put together. And I don't know if that was what they did in the spring, or if the high school teachers get to look forward to that for the fall conferences as well. But it says it includes a massage and all kinds of other stuff. Is that open to board members and other faculty, or just?
I'll have to check on that one, Mr.
Okay,
Mumby.
all right. Well, that sounds really great. So there's Danny Grieve and Kathleen Oakes, and is Sarah the other? I think maybe Sarah's the third. That was one, and then I had another one. It was Nick Tujo for, he's retired from this position now, but for all his work he put in, balanced the COVID responsibilities as our Mason Public Schools COVID czar. I think that's what he wanted to be called.
His preferred title, yes, his preferred title.
So now I believe that's Mr. Brooks handling those responsibilities, or others, but congratulations to the new person. But good job, Mr. Tujo, for all the work as our czar.
Yeah, we're actually expanding that role in the district. Matter of fact, Erin Berryhill is going to be assuming some of that work as well. Her background is registered nurse. So we got more details coming on that. It's a little early yet, but we'll be communicating that to the board in the near future.
Okay, thank you.
All set then. I think that would conclude the community staff relations.
Just before you move on, on the topic of the superintendent evaluation, I said we're not going to decide tonight, but we're almost a quarter of the way through the evaluation period.
Right.
When are we going to decide? Because we don't have goals, set yet. We don't have targets. We don't have a lot of things decided.
Good question, and I don't have an answer. I don't know if any other committee members would like to give thoughts.
I do plan to bring goals to the next Community and Staff Relations Committee once we get that all kind of tied up. We are obviously absent one board member that needs to be appointed yet, so certainly we want to make sure that's a group decision. We do have training. If we do switch tools, would have some training to go along with that switch. Also, too, any new board member that would come on board would have to be trained. But it has been a little slow, but that doesn't necessarily mean we have to switch for 21-22. It can be something that we look at 22, 23, if that's something that's, problematic. But there are some similarities, there's certainly some differences with the tool. Purpose is to let you get your eyeballs on them, take a look at two of them, and we can have further discussions in the near future if the board decides if the board desires to make a change in the tool.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to point out that we discussed a little bit at executive committee as well, our not total satisfaction with the tool we've been using previously, and my 2 cents that I'm interested in looking at the new tool. So we wanted to make sure they were in the packet. Hope every board member has had an opportunity to review them, and we do need to make a decision soon, but we did want to wait until we filled the vacant position and got Kurt back for a meeting. So if you haven't looked at them yet, please look at both of them and kind of form your opinion on whether you'd like to stay the course this year or look at the new one. As Ron said, we'll have to train at least one person anyway, so there will be a training offered on either the new tool or the current tool. So make sure that you look at it, and if you have comments, I guess you can get them back to Kurt. So is there any more for the community and staff relations?
Well, I would like to again reiterate the nice job notes are just really a little piece of what we get. There's an awful lot of wonderful things happening. We maybe forget that as school board members under the pressure, or maybe we forget that as parents, or maybe we forget that as a community, but we've got some superheroes here in Mason, and it's nice to see that through the nice job notes. So you all didn't hear what I got to read. I got a lot, so thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is policy and curriculum.
All right. We met on August 23rd. There was no public comment. First up was discussion of Mystic Lake. So just a little history. Typically, Mystic Lake is 7th grade camp. However, due to virtual learning and COVID-19 last year, the current 8th graders did not get the opportunity to go to Mystic Lake. So Tiffany Henfling, one of the 7th grade science teachers, and Beth Bailey, who are the two that organized that, have formulated the opportunity to be able to expand 7th grade camp to this year be 7th and 8th grade camp, to be able to give the current 8th graders that opportunity to go that are able to. I'm very biased on this one as a parent of an 8th grader. My son and all of his peers are beyond excited to be able to have this opportunity. So there was a discussion with regards to COVID protocols and things of that nature, and that will all be followed based off of Mystic Lake and what their protocols are with regards to the testing 3 days prior. It's approximately $100, I believe, or maybe an even $100 per student. And there is a current fundraiser that the students are able to participate in, and there is assistance for those that need it. So we were excited as a committee to be able to bring that to the board this evening. We have 2 policies that are before the board this evening. The first one is policy 2240, which we have been talking about several times. It did go back to committee. For those that remember, it did go back to committee to be further discussed and vetted within committee. And even from there, we asked during our conversation for it to go back to the district committee that was made up of administrators and teachers and those that represented the unions as well, to be able to be a part of that conversation, to sit at the table. So Mr. Dravitsky took back some of the conversations that we had here, as well as at the committee level, and they vetted it and felt that the way that the language is written today in that update is what they felt would be the supported language that they would like brought back to the board again. There was some further discussion about it. However, it was forwarded to the board for first reading at this time. The second piece of policy is 0167.3, which is public participation in board meetings. We've just had more public participation, which is great, which just means that we, doing our job as the board, should take a look at what that policy looks like to make sure that we're covering the needs of the community as well as the board. So there, you'll see some language that that's being recommended to be stated in that piece of policy. And then the other thing that we talked about is to make sure that for the first couple committee meetings and board meetings, to make sure that we discussed these changes so that the community that participates in those meetings understand the new piece of policy once it may be voted on. Obviously, it would be after next month's second reading if it passes. So there is that piece of policy as well. Then we had a discussion about the professional development for the start of the school year. And I know a couple of us were at the welcome piece at the beginning, which was, I love being able to be a part of that. And our DEI consultant was there to speak, and I've worked with him as a part of the DEI committee, and now it was super cool to see him in person and to be able to have a face-to-face interaction with him. So that was very nice. And so there were lots of topics, and the teachers had a lot of work to do those first couple of days, but they had a lot of interesting topics for them to discuss. Diversity committee was updated. Subcommittees are rolling, and I know that Mr. Kiefner has gotten in touch with those that are on the committee, which is nice, so that's going to be up and rolling. I know that there was already a change, which I think is super great to address. There was a change to be able to respect those that were celebrating Rosh Hashanah, to be able to change the diversity meeting so that it met the needs, so that those families could be able to celebrate those moments together without having to be stuck in a committee meeting. I think it's great that we were able to see that and acknowledge that. We did have a couple of public comments at the end, and then we adjourned at 7:52. Our next meeting is September 27th. Any questions?
I'd like to add just a quick comment on the 2240, part of the conversation on that. It didn't come back with substantive changes to it, but one of the things that did come back was a commitment that we would monitor its application in the future to gather data and information and experience on how it was being applied, and use that to help further our discussion on that as time goes on, in case it remains a problem or becomes a different problem again.
Can I follow up with a question? Was there any timeline on the monitoring? For instance, a year, 2 years, 6 months, anything like that?
What was the question, Patrick?
I'm sorry. He had mentioned the sort of monitoring, how it would work, how it's working, how the policy would work. And my question was there any kind of timeline set, like, well, let's try this for a year, let's try this for 6 months, anything like that?
I think it was just more of a fluidity to it, that it wasn't necessarily like, this is in place, it's not going to change, like, it just is, it's going to be put, like, the recommendation is to be put in place, but that if it's not meeting the needs, if it is meeting the needs, that we'll address it, and we'll be flexible to see what we need to change in the future if need be, if not, maintain.
Yeah, I mean, essentially the policy is applied in a vanishingly rare amount of circumstances, so it was more of, as it comes up, bring it to the next board or the committee, and we'll raise it if we feel it needs further discussion, just to make sure we understand how it's actually being used in practice.
Okay, appreciate those comments. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Mystic Lake Camp trip as presented.
Support.
It's moved and supported. Any discussion?
I appreciate, I had some questions regarding the COVID protocols. Some concerns were raised in other conversations I was having. It's all good. The administration has responded to that, and I think that we should consider maybe providing a follow-up that maybe clarifies that a little bit more. And just to avoid any confusion also, I think I was told that the pre-trip protocols will include day before and day of negative tests, which is not what we had heard in our meeting, that it was 1 to 3 days prior. Is that actually correct? That was changed?
Well, I know Mr. Brooks is working on Mystic Lake. It's one of the items that's on his list. Right now, we're putting together our Test to Stay program, which we are hopefully going to have kicked off on Monday, a week from today. So we'll have the resources, the location, all that details worked out. I think we've got some supplies on hand now. So we're looking forward to getting that ramped up to obviously keep more kids in school, and that would just dovetail into Mystic Lake. But if you've got, I'm not sure on frequency. I don't know what, if you got a little bit more details at this point.
To the trip, yeah.
Yeah, just for the trip.
But
Yeah, it's my understanding that Mystic Lake has their own criteria. So long as they're accepting of the test type that was made available to us by the state, we'll be able to administer that.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure there was no miscommunication regarding the pre-trip protocol. So I guess that's still being worked out, but.
As soon as we know exactly how we're going to go about, testing the kids, and if the test meets the Mystic Lake checkbox, then we'll let our kids know how that's going to happen, what dates, and then, of course, any follow-up if need be. But it'll kind of happen right because it's exactly what week is the
week before Halloween.
Exactly. So it'll be
end on Halloween.
Probably the week before, depending upon what day they go, because we've got 4 or 5 different groups. Some are going to go, I think, even the Sunday night, and then so it's Tuesday and could be a Thursday, and then so we'll have a little bit of a I shouldn't say juggling act, but certainly a little bit of a coordination to do as far as getting kids tested at the right time and the right location based on what days that they're going. So more to come on that.
Okay.
We got a couple weeks yet.
Well, just jump in quickly. Mystic Lake, by the way, would be a wonderful thing to showcase with some nice slides by these, I'm just dropping a hint.
I think that's a very good idea.
Yeah, it
Mr.
doesn't
O'Connor,
have to
thank
overdo
you.
it like the family trip that you're, from your uncle and you're kind of getting bored, but I think it'd be cool to see what they're doing. I'm
Yes.
excited for the kids and the staff and the parents that are part of this, so thanks to those folks for
I
making this
agree,
happen.
and certainly good news we want to hear every now and then, right? I mean, we're tired of all the other stuff. Not that that's not part of the job that we do, but boy, you can't get enough good news, and that's great that you're highlighting the nice job notes. That's also super cool. We got a new huge nice job note idea coming up that we'll share with you next month. So stay tuned on our huge nice job note idea.
Is there
But
any
anyway,
more discussion on the motion on the floor?
I'm sorry, I'm kind of off track, but it just got me all excited about. But thank you, Mr. O'Connor.
You're starting to sound like me.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0, thank you. That's your only motion, correct? Is that the end of your report? Okay. Sorry, Mr. Javitsky, I would love to hear about the exciting thing. I just wanted to not lose my place because the guy that normally does this is way better than I am. Okay, let's move to 8D, which is Capital Improvement Committee. And that is a committee I'm a member of, and I will give the report tonight. We met Thursday, August 26th, not long ago, and we had kind of a pre-meeting where we got to tour Steel Street School under construction with the proper protective equipment, including closed-toe shoes and everything. That was fantastic. They are making good progress, and they are starting to make headway, kind of eating into their delays that they experienced earlier in the construction season. So still several weeks behind, but making some progress and catching up. A lot of work going. Turned off my microphone. Sorry. A lot of work going on there. Very exciting. And I was able to walk through again and see some folks even there working on a Saturday morning. So I know they're using all the time that they have available to try to catch up. After our tour, we got back into the office and discussed mostly that project because that's the big one we have going on right now. Made a selection on bleacher curtains, very exciting. It was choice number 2 in case those of you in the audience are curious. It's the best looking bulldog. We talked about the budget for Series 2, and we're on track and on budget so far. We reviewed a few change orders. Superintendent gave us a communications update, and the actual Capital Improvement Committee meeting was only 27 minutes long, and we adjourned at 6:27. Next meeting's coming up in a couple weeks, the 23rd of September. Is that correct?
That's the schedule, correct?
Questions for Capital Improvement Committee folks? Okay, then we're going to keep moving on. 8E is Executive Committee, a seldom used committee, but it consists of the President, Vice President, and Treasurer. This time the Executive Committee was just 2 members. So we met on September 8th, and we had no public comment that morning. And the extent of the meeting was reviewing the large list of very qualified applicants for the open board position. Some years you have a hard time convincing anyone to run for these positions in some cases. This time we had 3 or 4 doctors, a NASA scientist, the litany of folks applying for the position. There was no shortage of applicants. And that was the bulk of the meeting, was a discussion on, okay, we know that the way to fill this vacancy is the board votes on somebody. That's the part that's set in stone. How you get to that part is not set in stone. So we discussed a litany of ways to figure out who to vote for rather than voting for one of 13 or 14 names, which is the number of people that applied. We did not whittle down the list of candidates besides excluding one that was ineligible, but we did agree to send out some additional questions to candidates. Then we had a brief discussion on merit pay for Superintendent, Executive Director of Curriculum, and Director of Student Support. And did I bring that tonight? Is that in the packet? It is not. I didn't think so.
No, it's not.
Okay. And then we adjourned at 9:47 in the morning. And are there questions about the Executive Committee before we move on to kind of the next step? Okay, so now we get into that gray area, that uncharted territory that we've done a few times in Mason, but we have a long list of candidates and kind of an open process for how to whittle them down. First of all, we do not have to select, we do not have to vote on somebody tonight, but we may. If we don't do it within 30 days of the vacancy being officially vacated, ISD will try to do it for us. So we would like to do it before we reach that date, and we have a little bit of time if we don't get through it tonight. But a suggestion on how we might do it is for us to, assuming everyone has had the opportunity to review the candidate applications and the responses to questions and any other supporting documentation that was submitted. Again, my 2 cents is that we have a lot of qualified and interested folks for this position. This is a roughly 15-month appointment. The position is vacant next year regardless, and it's one of 3 that are up for election. My suggestion, and we can discuss it a little bit, but I'm kind of trying to set the stage for a potential way for us to whittle the candidates down to a reasonable number and possibly vote tonight, would be for us to list in priority order or rank order our top 3 candidates, see which candidates might appear on everyone's list, and then further discussions or possibly entertain a motion on one of those candidates. Going from 13 of them is going to be challenging to review. So I don't have a motion, but I'm opening some kind of discussion on, does that sound like, obviously if you're ranking, like if I say here are my 3 and they're in this order, everyone would have to publicly state that because it has to be a public meeting where everyone knows where we stand. But we could do that, and 3 points for your first one, 2 points for your second, and 1 point for your first. See who was on that list, figure out who the top 2 are, and then see if someone has a motion on a candidate. That is a way to do it. I'm open to other ideas.
Yeah, I'm in favor of doing that. I think it's at least good as a first pass. If we don't come to consensus on that, well, then we can cross that bridge when we come to it, but we might be able to make this easier, so I'm in favor.
Well,
Want me to start it off? Oh.
yeah, I mean, I think substantially, I think that might be the best process, but I do believe, after reviewing some of the MASB recommendations, I would think maybe we should consider not necessarily putting in rank order at this point. Just because I don't think that our process is perhaps as accommodating in terms of gathering information. And I understand that that's we have so many candidates that's not as practical when there's so many.
Okay, how about this? Can we either write 2 or 3 names down, and we're going to have to read them aloud, and obviously we're not necessarily going to name everyone's name, so we're going to hurt some feelings already tonight, but that's how we have to do it. Then we can read them, we'll see which names appear the most frequently, and then we can have further discussion on 2 or 3 of those and see if any of those appeared on everyone's list, and if somebody feels comfortable making a motion. Again, this is a temporary appointment through next year. And the only thing that is official is we must vote on it, or someone else will pick them for us. And we're in a very fortunate position in that the 13 eligible folks all gave us very good reasons why they could serve on the board. I'm not sure why 13 people necessarily want to, but we're glad that there is that interest, very glad, and we should be in good hands no matter what we decide. So let me give folks just a moment to try to write down. Are we going to pick 3, 2?
Well, my concern is, first off, you're right. 13 people is an amazing thing, and sort of re-energized me, particularly when I saw the caliber. Every one of them could do the job. Not to sound like, Bob Barker on the final candidate of the Miss America thing, but the point is, everybody's wonderful, everybody's passionate. They wouldn't be in this pool were they not. But my concern is, I struggle with what the criteria is and what the criteria is supposed to be. Are we looking at, how do I weight some of this? And that's where I think MASB sort of helped us a little bit. One of the challenges I have, a big challenge I have, is I don't know some of these folks, and we are talking about a position that, granted, it's a person filling in the slot, but it's not a small thing. It would equate to a third of my overall 4-year term, meaning, about a year and a half, or year and whatever. So it's a big chunk of information, not information, a big chunk of responsibility and time. The other thing is we've got some pretty weighty things coming down the pike, including a couple we talked about here tonight earlier, things that are going to take a lot of energy and attention and all of that. So that said, if we were a private company trying to hire people, the process would have been some sort of culling, or not culling, that's not maybe a friendly word, some sort of finding the right people, those people that sort of rise to the top for whatever reason, and then some sort of face-to-face. And I'm concerned about the lack of face-to-face. One of the candidates I actually met just in front of the building here tonight, one of the candidates I've known and had conversations with, and a lot of them I don't know. And I'm just worried about the fairness to me as a school board member trying to make a sound decision with, again, not just a slot being filled, but a real position. And I'm also concerned about the fairness to the community and to those candidates. So what I do with that, I don't know. I'm not about to make a motion. I just wanted to sort of put that out in case I do make a motion in a few minutes. Thank you for entertaining my thoughts.
2 or 3?
And I don't mean to disrupt. I'm sorry, Mr. McGee.
You're not disrupting. You're always welcome.
But before we get to the number, I guess as an alternative endpoint for this evening, perhaps where we end up tonight, if we can't get the 4 votes necessary, that could be an opportunity to maybe invite those remaining candidates back, maybe for the face-to-face. we do have the time. If it's my understanding, we'd have, more than a week remaining to fulfill this responsibility.
Well, and let me clarify, I'm not proposing face-to-face for 13, so I guess I am leaning in the direction you're leaning, Mr. Mumby, with regard to sort of getting a shorter list.
Right, I'm trying to do one step at a time and see how
Okay,
far,
thank
how
you.
many
I'll-
steps
I'll-
we make today. So,
I'll be cautious not to jump ahead. Coca-Cola.
okay, so how about write down 2 or 3 names, and then we'll see which names appear the most common, and we'll see how many to proceed with, and then we can either move to have further discussions and special meetings and any other kind of discernment, or we can make a motion to appoint someone. I agree. More than half of the folks that applied for this position, I have never seen or met before tonight. But there are a number of names that I'm familiar with. Enough folks that have the eligibility and qualifications, experience, and I've met that I can name some names. So let's start with that, and I'll give folks a minute to write down 2 or 3 names. Does everyone have their part done? Okay, I don't know. You got to handle this in the minutes. So, and it'll need to be in the minutes, like whoever nominated, so.
I'm going to type it up. I have it handwritten. I've got everybody down, and so I will transpose once we get through all of this so that it is in, and it's reflected.
Okay. Mr. Duane?
My
order.
in no particular order is Matt Hall, Michael Coate, and Dr. Lark.
Mr. O'Connor?
Well, I actually wrote it on my secret
Can't be secret, it has to be
ballot.
public?
I'll just have to eat that, I suppose. In this order, Michael Coate, again, in this order, my choices would be Michael Coate, Amy Lark, Matt Hall.
Mr. Kelly?
Brian Day, Jennifer Sokol, and David Aldrich.
I don't have a Brian Day applicant. Brian Ball?
Brian Ball. My mistake.
Mrs. Evans?
I have Matt Bennett, Matt Hall, Michael Coot.
And I have Matt Hall and Michael Coate.
Ooh, I said it wrong. My apologies.
I struggled to find the third name that I was familiar with, and so I only put 2. So can you tell us maybe in frequency order? This is the hokey part where there are no instructions.
Okay. So in frequency order, Matt Hall has 4, Michael Coate has 4, Dr. Lark has 2, Ms. Sokol 1, Mr. Ball 1, Mr. Bennett 1, and,
Aldrich.
Mr. Aldrich 1.
Okay, so it seems like at least we've potentially eliminated, or not eliminated, that's a poor choice of words. We've reduced the pool to 2 or 4, I think, logically. There are 2 names that appeared 4 times of the 5 people voting. So I'd be comfortable saying that the majority of the folks here tonight have those two folks on their list. Now, how we proceed from here, we could entertain a motion to nominate one of them. We could entertain a motion to have a special meeting to interview them and grill them in public, although we've sent them a list of questions which they have responded to. And I'm not sure what other questions we might ask them. I know both of these individuals, have met them in person, and they have been visible in the community and contributed at board member meetings and other functions. So I don't know that I think we need to further draw this out, but I'll listen to other people's views. Or a motion.
So I'd like to make a motion to nominate Matt Hall as trustee to the Board of Education.
There's been a motion. Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there discussion?
As Matt sits right in front of me, it's a little, but I know he's a good guy and he can appreciate what we're going through here. I would like to see us sit down with the top three that you've mentioned, limit it to 15 minutes or what have you. Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
I can hear you, but there are 2 with 4, and then there are 2 more with 2. There's not a top 3.
Strike that, I miscounted. So the top 4 individuals, I would like to sit down with and have time to, 15-minute limit, whatever, ground rules, sudden death overtime is. But I do think it's an opportunity to better know some people. One of the challenges we have is there are people who have applied who have had family in this community. I think one of the people said, perhaps not one of these people, they've been in this community for 200 years. And we've had somebody who's been here for 2 years. But there's nothing in the criteria that says, nothing in the eligibility that would say you're too new, you've been around
30
too
days.
long. So those are my thoughts. There's a motion on the floor. If you count the votes at the end of the motion, it would not be against a very good person. It would be against perhaps the process. So I just want to make sure, in case that person ends up being our school board member and sitting next to me, he knows that it's the process I'm questioning.
Can I clarify first? I counted 2 people with 4, 1 person with 2, and everyone else as singles.
Yeah, that's, again, where I'm confused.
So there's only 1 person who received 2, correct? So we only have 3 people who got more than 1.
Right,
Okay.
thank you for that, because that's what I thought.
Yeah, I guess to that point, considering at least the two individuals who appeared on 4 lists, Mr. Hall and Mr. Coe, both of them are, to me, I consider to be pretty well-known commodities at this point. I'm not sure what else I would learn from further discussion with them. I've known them for years. That's one of the reasons that they're both high on my list. They've been involved for many, many years in the district, from appearing at meetings and making comment to participating on committees, going back to the bond campaign, both the study committee that generated the bond and then the campaign that got it passed. These are 2 highly involved individuals, and at this point, with a partial term left, I think it's best to focus on people who've got some heavy, steady involvement. They're known, like I say, known commodities, basically. We understand that they're committed and they know what's involved in this process. And I think we let the voters then decide in a year and a half between the other slate of very well qualified candidates to decide on, who's maybe the best.
Well, if I could just address that, I appreciate your comments, Steve, and I do agree. You've got in the group 2 people that have been very visible, but I worry about the fairness of somebody who hasn't had that opportunity to be visible, who wants to step up, who also has some incredible, accreditations. A female with a PhD in education, to stop and say, well, we can't include her in a 15-minute conversation because we've known some good guys who've done some good things. I think those good guys who've done some good things would actually say, yeah, that seems like a fair approach. So that's all I'm coming to. You have a motion on the floor. Again, if I don't vote in support of the motion, you'll know why. Thank you.
Further discussion?
Yeah, I guess I struggle a little bit with not having the opportunity to interact with some of the excellent candidates. I look at some of these and I may have been the first one off the list when I look at some of the qualifications and of all of these candidates. So I would feel, that we're not really doing all we can and being fair to as many candidates as we can. Also, you had said top 4, and I mean, I don't see such a wide range. If we did take the opportunity to get to know the candidates better, for those of us that are familiar with some of the candidates, we don't have to interact with them as much. I mean, if you don't have questions that you need to ask them, but I would feel better if we provided more opportunity to interact with all of the potential candidates here that have been noted. I don't think it's an overwhelming number at this point.
I didn't hear a majority of folks interested in personally interviewing 13, although I know you've personally spoken to some of the candidates. So I assume that you've had any of those discussions that you might have needed to have before tonight.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, but not, but I also know that not the board, the candidates haven't had that opportunity to interact with the people that are voting. And that's really more my concern, on their terms. So that we can, it's different, when you hear somebody standing and talking. I mean, for me, it has a much more meaning and impact on me than looking at a piece of paper or even a phone conversation, frankly.
And the process would not eliminate the person who's been nominated already. So in fact, it would be an opportunity to have reinforcement for me, because again, he's on my list, the person who's in the motion right now. So that's where I'm coming from. But again, you have a motion on the floor. Those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Is there further discussion?
No, I do want to add that the vote does require a majority of the board. So that's 4 board members would need to approve the motion.
Not the majority present, the majority of active board members.
Yep, I just clarified that with our school attorney.
Okay, I don't hear any more discussion, so now let's go roll call, please.
All right. Mr. Kelly?
No.
Mr. Duane?
Yes.
Mr. Mumby?
Yes?
Mr. O'Connor?
No.
And Mrs. Evans, yes.
Okay, the motion fails 3-2. 2 to 3?
Reflected as no action.
Correct. So no action. And does anyone have any other discussion for tonight? Or would you like to propose a special meeting next week before the ISD selects someone for us?
I'd like to make the motion to set up a special meeting for the purpose of face-to-face discussion / interview with the top 3 listed here, our top 3 candidates as determined by our highly scientific poll. Maybe you don't want highly scientific poll in that motion, but
Can I please have your verbiage slowed down so I can get it written?
it's a really good
And
idea.
louder?
It's a really good idea. I'd
you.
like to make the motion to have a special meeting for the purpose of face-to-face interviews with the top 3 candidates that we've,
Special meeting
for the purpose of
For the-
face-to-face
for the purpose of a face-to-face, yep.
interviews with the top 3 candidates, as determined by tonight's discussion.
We might just want to list the names in the motion.
And I can list the names: Michael Coate, Amy Lark, Matt Hall. Thank you.
Do you have the motion?
I'm going to read it back in a second. Coat, Lark, and Hall. Okay. So Mr. O'Connor, just make sure I have the verbiage correctly. Mr. O'Connor made a motion to have a special meeting for a purpose of a face-to-face interview with the top 3 candidates from this evening's list, Mr. Coate, Dr. Lark, and Mr. Hall.
That is correct. Thank you.
There's more than one doctor on that list. I don't know if you want to use doctor or not. but, okay.
I mean, I will say Dr. too, who I did not know that there was another. I
think so.
apologize.
I
Who's the
said
other
there might be more than
doctor?
one more than one PhD anywhere on that list, so I don't,
He doesn't self-identify as doctor typically, though.
all right,
Surprisingly, nor do I.
not surprised. Is
Support.
there any more discussion?
Was that supported?
I don't know, I think Steve just supported it.
supported it.
So now is there
Supported
discussion?
I guess I don't see the point of limiting it to 3. I mean, everything that we just said, would suggest that we should open it up to everyone that all of us felt were viable candidates. I mean, they're all viable candidates, but the ones that were put on the list. I mean, we're picking 2 of these people that I think we're all very, very well acquainted with. And so I'm not really sure why we would limit it to the top 3. It seems rather arbitrary to me.
How much time are you imagining we would spend in a face-to-face discussion with each candidate?
As long as necessary. I would, I'd
So
be
we've
here
got
all-
7 candidates on here. If we're going to spend a half hour to an hour with them, I don't know how we possibly manage that.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily put a time limit on it. I think that most of us are going to have a reasonable.
It'll be a
maybe no
public
questions.
meeting broadcast on YouTube. That has to happen in the next 10-ish
9,
days.
10 days.
Yeah, I think the 22nd or 23rd was our
23rd.
drop dead date, so I would think early next week. I know President Creamer's out of town until next week, so
Superintendent's out of town next week, but he's not
True, but
needed for the special
I
meeting.
don't actually vote on this, so.
Well, with the question on timeline, I did not include in my motion format, so I would hope that could be something the board president / vice president could come up with a format. My earlier comment was 15 minutes, so I don't know if I need to amend my motion to get very specific on the process. I'd like to not do that. I'd rather defer to our school board president. So that's just discussion. Again, the top 3 is what I was talking about. Michael's talked about more.
Okay, is there any other discussion on the current motion?
I guess, could I clarify, there was Mr. Bennett mentioned as one of the?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Do any school board members feel I need to amend my motion to talk about format at all, or should I just amend it by saying format at the discretion of our school board president?
If it's left open, I think that's fine.
If it's not specified, that's how I think it will work.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion?
I guess I would like to make a motion to amend the motion on the floor to include the
Hold on.
to include the 4 additional candidates selected.
So say it again.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yep.
To amend the motion on the floor to include the additional 4 candidates that were selected by tonight's board members.
And I think we'll want to put those names in that amended motion, either
need me to
now
read them
or
out
when
loud?
it's.
Those candidates are Brian Ball, Jennifer Sokol, David Aldrich, and Matt Bennett.
Okay, so we're a motion in a motion, and the motion inside the motion is to amend the original motion. Is there a second for that amendment?
I'm getting dizzy with all the motion.
It does not appear, it appears to die as an amendment without a second. So we're back to the original motion and discussion. Is there any other discussion on the original motion?
Could you please read the original motion again, please?
Mr. O'Connor made and Mr. Duane supported a motion to have a special meeting for a purpose of face-to-face interviews with the top 3 candidates from this evening's list of Coate, Lark, and Hall.
Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Kelly?
No.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Mumby?
Yes?
Myself, Ms. Evans, yes, and Mr. Duane?
Yes.
Is that 4-1?
That is 4-1.
Okay, so we are not selecting a new board member tonight, but we're going to talk to 3 potential board members, should they still be interested after tonight, at a time within the next 10-ish days.
Just to poll the board is, Mondays are typically our typical meeting date. Does the 20th work for the 5 of you? We do have a committee meeting that the agenda is by no means stock full of items. Matter of fact, it's rather light. We could cancel that meeting and have a 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock meeting on the 20th, which is Monday. I would have to obviously double check with our board president, Kurt Creamer, to make sure he's available. Would that work?
Well, and as chair of the committee that would be canceled, I would, again, I would be okay with us not meeting for this purpose, to have a good solid meeting, a special meeting. In other words, cancel committee staff relations to allow time for the special meeting. In fact, that would be my recommendation, unless staff comes back and says there's urgent, things that we have to deal with. But otherwise, I would make that recommendation.
Yeah, there's nothing urgent that needs to be talked about at that meeting. I was actually going to follow up with you this week. So I can double check with President Creamer. Looks like Monday is tentative. Thumbs up. We'll certainly kind of confirm that in the next few days, and obviously call the meeting as we normally would. Now, just know that we'll have 6 members. We'll require a full 4 board member vote, or that's how it gets back to the ISD if we can't decide.
Just like to point out that this is a great problem to have, that we have so many qualified folks interested in this. And I've spent 4, 5, 6 hours myself trying to figure out how to whittle this list down, because they're all as or more qualified than I am to sit up here for sure. So,
and I just want to add to and encourage all the interested parties, and if there are others, the next election's November in 2022, and that's really when the board members are elected. Okay, it just happens so that we're in a predicament we have to appoint. We don't actually have an election where we, poll our community, but in November of 2022, we will. And so, I do want to encourage, if there are people interested in running for school board, that would be a perfect time to put your name in the hat and let the electorate decide, who is best to represent our community on the school board. But
and there are
again.
lots of opportunities to get more involved between now and then as well, whether at board meetings or in individual schools.
And thank you for taking the time. I know you're probably, the 6-question questionnaire was not an easy task. It took, I'm sure, a few hours to complete that, and obviously put all the paperwork together to apply for the position. I thank you for taking the time and the interest and willingness to put yourself on YouTube and kind of debate these important issues with us. So it's appreciated.
Okay, moving on to 8F, Superintendent. You have any report tonight?
I have no other matters, Mr. Mumby.
Number 9, introduction of other matters by members of the board.
If I could, just quickly recognize Mr. Laddig, our athletic director, who'll be leaving, sadly, because he's one of the best in the state, according to his peers, and certainly in my book. He's done an awful lot, and in fact, one of the reasons Mason Athletics is strong and we have so many kids participating is because we have a person like Greg Laddig at the helm. He's helped my family, he's helped my kids, he's helped me. I got to coach a little baseball thanks to Mr. Laddig, and I got to be on the Athletic Boosters Board. I got to sell popcorn at the concession stand. He didn't throw me out. So thank you, Mr. Laddig, and I think that goes for the whole community. I just wanted to make sure it was mentioned while, again, we have a worldwide audience watching.
I'll just add to that a tiny bit that I discussed it with him last Wednesday and chastised him for leaving. But he pointed out that he has a student still in Mason schools. He intends to remain a resident of the school district, and he's not going far. Lansing Community College is just down the road. So he may see some of our student athletes at the next level after they leave Mason. So it's really great news that he's not going to be too far away. We'll get to keep interacting with him, and it'll be interesting to hear about the candidates to fill that position. I guess the other does anyone else have other matters? I have at least one thing that I think we should at least bring up tonight, but does anyone else?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I had just a quick comment about the success of this year's PD, the 3 days of in-service training before school started. I think went very well, and the other matter, it was culmination, I think, of a lot of DEI work was imbued into our training this year, and as such, I am hoping that we can find a way to make those resources and that training material available to the public as a demonstration of the work that we've been doing. So that has come up on a few occasions. I think that that and the other matters that have been brought forth by the DEI committee, including the controversial issues policy, those are all things that I think we can, that's the best way for us to demonstrate the work and the investments that we put into our DEI efforts, is to make that information available.
Mr. Duane?
Yeah, so on September 1st, I attended the first board meeting of the Mason Public Schools Foundation for this school year. Under new leadership, as I shared the last time, new board president there is Barb Byram. She introduced several candidates to fill out some additional director seats on the board there, and happy to confirm that all three of them were unanimously voted on, and those three individuals are Jose Yanez, Alec Findlay, and Shantana Simmons. So we have outstandingly fulfilled board at the moment with a lot of different backgrounds, perspectives, and skills, and I am feeling very excited for the things that they're planning to do this year.
I'm going in a little different direction, maybe a downer, I don't know. But President Executive Order requiring all employers with 100 employees or more to vaccinate their staff. I assume that we're digesting what that means for Mason Public Schools, and there'll be some report in the future.
That is correct. We're still waiting for MIOSHA to come out with some guidance on that. We do know that we obviously have more than 100 employees, so that's either require vaccinations or test. I think it's every 5 days, I believe, Mr. Brooks. We're still sorting that out, and obviously once we get more direction from our MIOSHA group, we'll be sitting tight waiting for hot off the press news, breaking news.
And then the other thing I just wanted to point out is, at least anecdotally, while it was a difficult decision at the last board meeting on masks that was rendered kind of moot two weeks later or a week later, it sounds like we made the correct decision, and we would have impacted many more students and been forced to quarantine a lot more students had we not made that decision. So while it was extremely difficult for me, I feel better about the decision now, knowing that we've had a very successful start to the year at all buildings, and the vast majority of our kids have been able to be in school every day. So just wanted to say thank you for that.
And to point out, that would have been in the hundreds. So we kept a lot of kids in school a lot longer. And, under the current rules, now when we get the test to stay, that's going to help as well significantly. And we'll see kind of how those numbers, fall out when we get results of the tests. But that's going to be another vehicle for us to keep kids in school. And so, we're excited about doing that, and we've got a good plan to get that kicked off soon. And we appreciate the community's support. I mean, since day one, and I know not all people agreed with masks. I mean, we certainly could have that debate for hours upon hours. We could have 10 special meetings. But when push came to shove, when it came time for kids to go to school and line up for that bus, everybody was supportive. Parents, students, and students did a phenomenal job, and parents were certainly right behind them, supporting them. And so we appreciate everyone kind of putting, the politics of it aside and doing what's best for not only their child, but all the kids in Mason Public Schools. It certainly has gone a long way. Our staff's very appreciative of that. We got a lot of people that have boots on the ground. You got bus drivers, you got food service, we got people that are integral parts of our school district that really appreciate the support and the cooperation and not having to, debate and argue every step of the way. It's been unanimous, and so I just wanted to share that and share my gratitude to our community for stepping up.
While we're on the subject real quick, that reminded me of a question that I had the other day. I was looking at the COVID-19 dashboard, and I noticed, it mentions on there, new cases and then cumulative. How long does a new case stay on there before it drops off? It wasn't clear to me. The dates didn't make a whole lot of sense for what was considered new for some of them.
Yeah, a person that's positive and isolated for 10 days is complete after the 10 days. However, we have done some back and forth communication to affirm that somebody is returning. So there are some older ones that are due to come off,
Okay.
especially after the weekend. So that'll be cleaned up.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I want to say, too, thank you to the health department for mandating the masks, which is actually the reason why we didn't have to quarantine. Not because we could have chosen to have the masks as well. We didn't. The mask mandates, that is. But
We did choose the mask mandate.
we did choose the correct. But what my point being that the 6 foot, 3 foot difference that makes up the hundreds differences was an arbitrary decision by the county health department. And the application of, it's a demonstration of how, ridiculous that was. So I do thank them for actually mandating that, making instead of putting that, keeping that on our shoulders. So, and consolidating the rules.
Any other matters by members of the board? I'm moving on. Other matters by superintendent?
Again, no other matters.
Okay, we're back to the second round of public comment. If you spoke earlier, you do not have the same opportunity now, but if you have not and would like to, feel free to step up to the podium and either fill out a form or state your name and address. Would anyone like to speak at the end of the meeting? Okay, then can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourned to 8:42. Thank you, everybody.